Happy to be the MC for this event. I've been part of trying to get this project off the ground for what is now a number of years. I'm really pleased to see it coming to fruition. Let me thank all the very many people out there who are part of making this project a reality and for making and for getting this event together today. I would also like to thank all of you for being here. Let me mention a few people who aren't going to be speaking. Michael McLeod, the MP for Northwest Territories, Vivian, who's an MP for Sudbury, also Paul Lefebvre, who's the mayor of Sudbury, and Thunder Bay's fine mayor, Ken Boshkoff. Let me start off by acknowledging that we're on the traditional lands of many nations, including the Mississauga of the Credit, the Anishinaabe, the Chippewa, the Haudenosaunee, and Wendat peoples. We also acknowledge that Toronto is covered by Treaty 13 signed with the Mississaugas of the Credit, and the William Treaty signed with multiple Mississaugas and Chippewa bands. As probably a lot of you know, Northern Ontario has a long, proud history of mining. And I'm looking over at Paul. So traditionally, it's mostly been in northeastern Ontario, but increasingly, it's also in Thunder Bay in northwestern Ontario. And certainly one of the many forces which is driving the mining boom in our region is the green transition and the considerable investments our government is making in critical minerals. I was at an announcement last October where we announced $13.8 million investment from Natural Resources Canada into 5 projects focused on developing the infrastructure to develop critical minerals in northwestern Ontario and ensuring that northwestern Ontario is an integral part of the end-to-end supply chain of providing critical minerals for building electric cars, and in particular providing the lithium for the batteries for those electric cars. These investments from the federal government are positioning northwestern Ontario, the workers in northwestern Ontario, the people of northwestern Ontario, to be able to reap the benefits of the green transition for years to come. So, without further ado, let me introduce, and I hope you'll all welcome to the microphone, the Honourable Jonathan Wilkinson, Minister of Energy and Natural Resources.
Maybe I can just try to see. I think this one actually works, so. Okay. Good morning, or good afternoon. Welcome, everyone. Bonjour et bienvenue à tous. It is a great pleasure to be here with all of you, and certainly to be joined by a range of my cabinet colleagues, all of whom have been champions for the mining industry in Ontario and elsewhere in Northwest Territories. I also want to acknowledge Minister Vic Fedeli, Ontario's Minister of Economic Development, Job Creation and Trade. We have had enormously strong collaboration on a range of industrial development files, and I certainly want to thank you for being here today. Today, I do want to speak to you about the importance of mining and critical minerals in particular, and to make a couple of important announcements. But first, I want to say a few words about something that I suspect is on the minds of everybody here. As folks will be well aware, we are presently facing some pretty significant potential economic challenges brought about by President Trump's decision to move forward with tariffs on Canada. In doing so, the President has disrupted a consensus in favor of free trade and strong economic ties between our two countries that has existed since at least the 1988 election. These developments have been shocking for most Canadians, seeing our longtime best friend treat us essentially as an adversary. It has generated significant sadness, concern, and I would say anger. And certainly it has created confusion as to why any world leader would make a decision that's going to push up the prices of groceries, of energy, of automobiles, and a range of other products at a time when Canadians and Americans are looking to focus on issues around affordability. A key part of my job as Minister of Energy and Natural Resources and of the federal government generally is to work to see a swift withdrawal of these unjust, unwarranted, and economically damaging tariffs. C'est la raison pour laquelle plusieurs de mes collègues et moi-même avons passé beaucoup de temps ces 2 derniers mois à Washington, D.C. et je m'y rendrai à nouveau plus tard dans la semaine. But irrespective of tariffs, I think it is clear that the events of the past few months have made Canadians ever more aware of the need to accelerate the building of an economy that will be more resilient going forward, that will be stronger, diversified, prosperous, environmentally sustainable, and inclusive. While I am quite sure that we will, by dint of geography, continue to trade with our American neighbors, it has become very, very clear that we can no longer rely on the Americans in the way that we have in the past. We will never go back to where we were 3 months ago with our friends in the United States. We will never be able to trust them in the same way that we did before. Ensuring we are increasingly resilient has to focus on a number of things. Eliminating the internal barriers to trade between provinces and territories, something that we've talked about for a long time, but something that needs to get done, and it needs to get done quickly. We need to deepen trade relations with key, trustworthy allied countries, and we need to do that in a very focused and strategic manner. We need to enhance the capacity of our railways and our ports to enable greater exports of products from across this country. We need to assess potential vulnerabilities with respect to our energy infrastructure. We need to continue to improve and make more efficient regulatory and permitting processes to ensure that good projects can be built and built within reasonable timeframes, something I discussed at length with all Canada's energy and mines ministers this morning. And we need to ensure that Canada remains a great place to invest and grow. And certainly, mining is a big part of ensuring prosperity and resilience moving forward. As folks will know very well, Canada is a mining nation. We are home to half of the world's publicly listed and mineral exploration companies. We have a presence in 100 different countries, a combined market capitalization of $520 billion. CapEx in the sector was up 16% in 2022. Nous sommes parmi les 5 premiers pays producteurs de 13 minéraux et métaux importants, dont le palladium, l'or, le platine, et le nickel. The mining sector has long been an important driver of economic prosperity in this country. It provides tens of thousands of good jobs for Canadian families across this country. Mining has been at the heart of all of these regions for generations, providing livelihoods and opportunities from Trail, BC, to Sudbury, Ontario, to Thetford Mines, Quebec, to Moose River, Nova Scotia. And mining is something that has become even more important in recent years as a result of the enhanced significance of critical minerals. Critical minerals represent a generational economic opportunity for Canada, for workers, for Indigenous peoples, for a range of communities. The global economy is going to be increasingly mineral intensive going forward. These are required for a range of energy technologies, including electric vehicles, batteries, solar panels, wind turbines, and other applications, for digital technologies, including semiconductors, and for a range of important defense applications. Canada can build end-to-end supply chains. In the critical mineral space, we have the mineral resources, the technology, the mining expertise to build these end-to-end critical mineral supply chains, from exploration to extraction, to processing, to end product manufacturing, to recycling. This can and will mean hundreds of thousands of good jobs, economic growth and investment, while also helping the world to reduce emissions and to improve the national security of our allies. Les minéraux critiques sont un domaine dans lequel le Canada peut jouer un rôle de premier plan à l'échelle mondiale. D'ailleurs, bon nombre de nos alliés démocratiques, y compris ceux de l'UE, du Japon et de la Corée du Sud, comptent sur le Canada pour jouer un rôle de chef de file dans ce domaine. While China presently dominates many critical minerals supply chains, Canada has the opportunity to be a reliable ally and supplier. And to ensure that we were doing what we needed to do to put ourselves into that position, we developed and launched in 2022 Canada's first critical mineral strategy, a plan that was backed by $4 billion in investments, plus 3 associated investment tax credits that are fundamental to driving private sector equity into these projects. There are a number of different elements to the critical mineral strategy, including supporting economic growth, competitiveness, and job creation, and advancing economic reconciliation with Indigenous peoples. And that strategy is working. Canada has seen a 15% increase in the production of key critical minerals. We have invested over $300 million in funding through the strategy's flagship program, the Critical Minerals Infrastructure Fund, which is helping to accelerate mine development through investments in energy and transportation infrastructure at sites across the country. The government is also investing significantly, close to $500 million through the Strategic Innovation Fund in critical minerals projects that will build processing capacity, including in electro-battery metals, cobalt refinery in Ontario, and Vale's nickel sulfate processing plant in Quebec. We've seen a new critical minerals mine and 2 mine expansions targeting critical minerals come on stream, and we've seen a number of mines that were being retired or were in retirement restarting, including Crean Hill, Val Stobbe, and McLean Lake in northern Saskatchewan. And we have made good progress on federal regulatory and permitting processes, and we are working actively on a multilateral and a bilateral basis with our provinces to better align those processes. As I say, we are focused not simply on mining, but on end-to-end supply chains. This end-to-end approach is clear in the battery supply chain, where Bloomberg ranks Canada as the world's most promising destination for lithium-ion battery supply chains. In extraction, Canada has enough planned lithium, graphite, and nickel mining projects to support all planned domestic electric vehicle manufacturing, and more mines and expansions are underway. Dans le domaine de l'innovation, de la recherche et du développement, nous soutenons des projets pré-commerciaux qui récupèrent le nickel et le cobalt des résidus miniers, ce qui permet de réduire la pollution et de rendre l'industrie des batteries plus compétitive. In advanced processing, as I say, companies like Electra and like Frontier are building new facilities, and these are attracting investment from our partners and allies around the world, like Japan's Mitsubishi, who is looking for a reliable supplier of these critical minerals. And certainly we are doing a lot of work with respect to vehicle manufacturing. Minister Fedeli did a lot of that work with my colleague, Minister Champagne, and certainly on recycling as well. Much has indeed been accomplished, but there remains more work to be done on part of governments and certainly on the part of industry. Mais nous réalisons par des progrès significatifs et historiques, étape par étape. And today I am pleased to be here to announce 2 important additional steps. Firstly, I am pleased to announce that the federal government has conditionally approved funding of up to $120 million from the Strategic Innovation Fund for Frontier Lithium to establish a first-of-a-kind lithium refinery in Thunder Bay, Ontario. This facility will support the demand for EV battery metals, advancing both Ontario's EV framework and critical mineral strategy. It is representative of how, when Canada collaborates, industry, Indigenous communities, municipalities, provinces, and the federal government, we can make rapid progress. As folks will here will know, lithium is a key component in clean tech manufacturing for a range of different products. Global demand is skyrocketing, and certainly primary source of many of much of the lithium that's used around the world is China. This is an incredibly important step forward for Ontario. It's an incredibly important step forward for Canada. Secondly, I am announcing that we are opening the Critical Minerals Infrastructure Fund for its 2nd round of applications. The 2nd round will involve both an open call and a directed call for proposals. The open call will use the same criteria as the first round of applications, which was enormously successful. The directed call will involve close collaboration with industry partners and with provincial and territorial governments who are looking to work with the federal government to accelerate shovel-ready projects. Successful applications under the directed stream will also be able to access amounts of funding that exceed the usual limits on the fund. Successful projects will focus particularly on critical minerals that will support applications in Canada and around the world across key sectors, including energy, semiconductors, and defense. Seizing the opportunities offered by critical minerals will not happen on its own or by chance. On the one hand, we can choose to lead by recognizing where the world is heading and aggressively pursuing major areas of economic opportunity. That is the choice that this federal government has made. On the other hand, we can choose to bury our heads in the sand and pretend the world is not moving rapidly towards a cleaner future, creating uncertainty and driving away economic investment and well-paying jobs. I am certainly pleased to say that this federal government and industry and Indigenous and provincial partners are choosing to act, making smart choices to ensure our economy thrives in the current environment and in the low-carbon future. We understand where the world is headed, and Canada will be there to meet and to prosper from it in the rapidly expanding critical mineral space and across all of Canada's natural resource sectors. So thank you very much for joining us here today.
Thank you very much, Jonathan, for that wonderful announcement. Now, please join me in welcoming the Honourable Vic Fedeli, Ontario Minister of Economic Development, Job Creation and Trades. Vic, the mic's yours.
I accept the raise. Thank you. You caught that. And Minister Wilkinson, you got the yellow tie memo this morning. Thank you very much. Pleased that you did. Thank you, MPP Pawlowski, for your introduction and greetings. Good afternoon, everybody. Wow, we've got a great crowd here. This is Northern Ontario always pulls out a hell of a great crowd. It's wonderful to be here at PDAC today, alongside my colleague, Associate Minister Kevin Holland, who's also the MPP for Thunder Bay Atikokan, all of our federal counterparts, Trevor and Rick from Frontier Lithium, and Consul General from Japan. We all know today President Trump imposed 25% tariffs on almost all Canadian exports to the U.S., and of course a 10% tariff on Canadian energy. And as well, we all heard earlier today, both our provincial and federal governments are responding. In this increasingly unstable global climate, it is more important than ever that our province and our country remain united and resilient so that we can protect our workers and our economy. Yesterday, Premier Ford made it clear that the front line of our battle against Donald Trump's tariffs starts in Northern Ontario with our abundant supply of critical minerals. Ontario is uniquely positioned as the only jurisdiction in the Western Hemisphere with all of the critical minerals required to build electric vehicles, including nickel, cobalt, lithium, and graphite. By bridging these rich northern resources with the manufacturing might of Southern Ontario, our government is laying the foundation for a strong and self-sufficient economy for decades to come. As we stand here in front of many of you who have already heard this part of the speech over and over and over, we've updated our number. Over the last 5 years, Ontario has attracted $46 billion in new investments by global automakers and manufacturers of EV batteries and battery materials. That is a spectacular record. By the way, more than any single U.S. state. I'd just like to add that today, feeling our oats today. As we continue to position Ontario as a top global jurisdiction in the EV transition, the importance of our critical mineral sector cannot be understated. Critical minerals are an integral part of our everyday lives, powering supply chains throughout Canada and around the world. And that includes our automotive supply chain, but it is also inclusive of many other industries and sectors so wonderfully described by Minister Wilkinson. That is why it's so important that we continue attracting investment and working with industry partners and unions to support our workers and create jobs here in Ontario. Under the leadership of Premier Ford, domestic and international companies have all come to recognize that Ontario has everything necessary for success, including an expansive automotive supply base, reliable and clean energy supply, abundant critical mineral resources, a world-class workforce, and a thriving R&D ecosystem. And today, our government is pleased to welcome the proposal by Frontier Lithium to invest hundreds of millions of dollars to build a first-of-its-kind lithium refinery in Thunder Bay. Congratulations, Trevor and Rick and all of your team. Of course, this refinery in Thunder Bay would result in hundreds of new full-time jobs and support Ontario's emerging end-to-end critical mineral supply chain, with critical minerals mined and refined in Ontario by Ontario workers. This proposed investment is not only a testament to our province's reputation as reliable and prosperous partner in supplying and producing critical minerals, a sharp contrast to competitor jurisdictions like China, but it also reaffirms that our mining sector is at the heart of our plan to protect Ontario, which is why the province is considering support for the project with more than $120 million, of course, Rick, subject to good negotiations. So I want to congratulate you on that provincial portion. I told your father earlier, Trevor, I said, I'm tough on the boys, but I'm always good to your father. As we look ahead, our government is prepared to make bold decisions that will position Ontario as one of the best places in the world for companies to invest, to grow, and to create jobs. Through strategic partnerships such as the one we're acknowledging here today, we will deliver on our plan to protect the people of Ontario by making our economy safer, stronger, and more secure. On a personal note, to our friends at Frontier Lithium, we want to thank you. We've been working together for so many years. I was in opposition when we first met. I remember our first meeting in our office in North Bay. It's got to be, obviously, we've been in government for more than 7 years, so it's about 10 years ago, coming in, trying to explain what the heck lithium was and what a lithium conversion facility would look like, long before anybody was ever really talking about lithium. So it's just with great pride to see a father and son northern team with great backing by our friends from Japan as well, to be able to produce what you're going to be able to produce here in a first-of-a-kind facility. It just gives me chills, Rick, to see what you and your family have done. I'm so proud of all of you guys. We thank you and we wish you continued success, and I will welcome Minister Hajdu to share her words.
Well, thank you so much, and what a great crowd here. I think the crowd speaks volumes in terms of the excitement and enthusiasm that we all feel about your announcement, Jonathan. And Jonathan is probably sick of the Thunder Bay MPs speaking to him about this very important investment in Northern Ontario. But I am so grateful for the time that you've taken with me and with my colleagues, and certainly from other partners across all levels of government, to make this announcement today and to bring this announcement to reality. So I just want to thank you, Jonathan, for your leadership in this space and for your willingness to continue to partner with us over the journey. I think many of my colleagues have spoken about the importance of critical minerals. They're not just a resource, they're the foundation of the future of technology. They are an important part of the digital economy that is increasingly part of all of our lives. And Northern Ontario plays such an important role in not only the now discovery and excavation of important critical minerals, but also the processing of critical minerals. This is also a huge game changer for the economy of Thunder Bay. And I want to acknowledge Jamie Taylor back in the back there with CEDC. You may not know this, but Jamie also texted me daily almost in terms of where things were at with Frontier Lithium. And why is that? Because this is a part of our history, actually, in Northern Ontario, but it's also a huge addition to the economy of Thunder Bay, which plays a really critical role MPP Holland would know this, in actually the economy of Ontario overall. And so we are just so grateful, like Minister Fedeli said, Trevor and team, that you stuck with it, that 10 years ago, or probably more, you were having those conversations with people like me, a newly elected member of Parliament, who didn't really understand equally the importance of lithium and how this was going to fundamentally shape our economy here in Ontario. So thank you for all of those exploratory conversations and opportunities to get to know this industry better. I do want to thank the Consular General of Japan and the country of Japan for taking a chance on Canada. I know that this also gives you relief as a country in terms of having a stable supplier of lithium, someone that you can trust, a strong ally, and a true business partner. And thank you for being here today. It speaks volumes. I also finally just want to thank everyone who's worked on this. There are always people working in the background, the officials at all levels, the people from FedNor who have been a huge ally in this work, the many officials that have advocated for this investment today. And I'm really looking forward to our continued journey together. So as a minister from Northern Ontario, as a member of Parliament for Thunder Bay Superior North, a huge thank you and miigwech for all of your investment. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Patty. Now I'd like you all to welcome Trevor Walker, who's the president and CEO of Frontier Lithium. I think a Sudbury guy born and bred, and let me say that lithium is a 100% Canadian-owned company. Welcome, Trevor. Glad to see the day finally happened.
Thank you. I appreciate it. The Canadian dream is still alive. Yeah. Thank you, Mr. Pawlowski, for the introduction. Yeah, it's great to be here in Toronto today, surrounded by so many familiar faces, and really feeling the support is really incredible. So we're truly thankful for Team Canada, Team Ontario. It's really a blessing. We just want to be here today and recognize that something of strategic importance for the Thunder Bay region. It's indeed for Canada as a whole. So good afternoon, everyone. At Frontier Lithium, we have a clear vision. That's to become North America's leading supplier of lithium. We're grateful to you, Minister Wilkinson, and Minister Hajdu, Minister Fedeli. Thank you. And all of your, all the colleagues across the government of Canada and Ontario. We thank you for the confidence that you've placed in this vision, and for your commitment to see Canada's first fully integrated lithium operations in Northern Ontario. So by 2030, our goal is to be mining lithium ore from the PAC Lithium project in northwestern Ontario. Your previous commitments to invest $6 million will lay the foundation for road, bridge, electricity infrastructure. We need to make the mine into a reality. This funding will support engagements with local communities, northern communities, Indigenous communities in a very meaningful way. We ensure and we understand the needs of working together and creating and continuing to build true partnerships. So mining is a critical first step in securing a supply chain. This funding will help us continue to attract private capital and strategic partnerships, much like Mitsubishi Corporation, the people of Japan, real partners, real support to build the lithium conversion facility in Thunder Bay, where we're going to process lithium concentrate into battery-grade lithium salts here in Ontario, supplying North America's electric vehicles, energy storage industries. We will make this happen through the incredible support that we feel from you all today, and we know we will continue. This facility, located on the traditional territory of Fort William First Nation, will also house a regional office and innovation center and will cement Thunder Bay's connection, and a very different connection to Canada's supply chain. And it's obviously got strategic access to road, rail, water networks. Thunder Bay will connect Ontario's lithium resources to provincial, national, and global markets for generations to come. And the economic impact is very real. We're talking about hundreds of jobs, from construction to long-term operations, obviously driving economic growth, growing a skilled workforce, securing more resilient future for Thunder Bay, Northern Ontario, and beyond. Once built, this facility will solidify Canada's leadership in critical minerals and battery materials. It'll strengthen our domestic supply chain, power North America's clean energy transition, keep the economic development or benefits of our natural resources right here at home. Today's announcement, in conclusion, this is a major step in the right direction. Our team at Frontier is ready to get to work, to turn this support into investment, partnerships, and action. We need to mobilize in Canada. We look forward to working with the federal and our friends here at Queen's Park and Ontario to unlock this incredible opportunity for Ontario and for Canada. Thank you very much. Thank you.
Thanks, Trevor, and congratulations again. I'd now like to invite Mr. Takeshi Matsunaga, Consul General to Japan in Toronto, to speak. Arashai Masse. And oh, by the way, I think as of today, Canada needs a new best friend as a country, perhaps Japan.
Thank you so much, Mr. Pelski. Thank you so much. The Honorable Minister Wilkinson, Honorable Vic Fedeli, Honorable Patty Hajdu, thank you, and distinguished guests. Good afternoon. As we are all aware very much, the international situation is becoming increasingly precarious. There are economic challenges galore looming over our heads. In this challenging environment, peoples of Japan and Canada are awakening to the truth of the two countries being true, persistent friends. We share Thank you. We share fundamental values. We are bound by mutual respect. At the same time, Japan and Canada share critical economic interests and a design for the future. Net zero carbon emissions by 2050 is one of them. The two governments signed a memorandum of cooperation 2 years ago to cover the entire battery supply chain from upstream to downstream in Canada. The relevant cooperation between the two countries is becoming more and more extensive, spanning the production of not only batteries and their materials, as well as a range of electrified powertrains, but also the mining and refining critical minerals. And that is where the partnership between Frontier Lithium and Mitsubishi Corporation, that corporation is playing an exemplary, trailblazing role. the potential of their PAC lithium project to exploit and process the highest grade lithium spodumene in North America can be genuinely transformative. I really felicitate on the Frontier Lithium's recent announcement on the financing, the net proceeds from which was used to purchase a vacant industrial site on Mission Island in Thunder Bay, Ontario, as well as the continuing support of the federal government and the provincial government of Ontario for this visionary project. Today's announcement is a testimony to Canada's commitment to leveraging local critical minerals, to the strategy to build a full battery value chain, to the future we share, and to our bilateral partnership, which is ratcheting up to a higher plane. I'm truly thrilled by today's announcement, which will go a long way in helping further solidify our partnership and advance our shared vision for the future. Thank you very much. Thank you.
Arigatou gozaimasu. Takashi Matsunaga-san. Now let me welcome Ryan Turnbull, Parliamentary Secretary for just about everything, Parliamentary Secretary to Minister of Finance and Intergovernmental Affairs, and Parliamentary Secretary to Minister of Innovation, Science and Industry. And if they added anything since then, and my friend, Ryan Turnbull.
Well, it's great to be here, and I think the microphone will do. It'll be tall enough for me. So I'm last but not least. I just wanted to say it is really, truly remarkable when we see how many levels of government and partners come together to make big things happen in Canada. I'd say we need that more now than ever before, given the threats and the economic security challenges that our country is facing. I want to say Japan and Canada, Consul General, I was with you at the Honda announcement not so long ago, which was the biggest announcement in Canadian automotive history, which was truly remarkable, and Japan is a great friend to Canada, there is no doubt. I know that I could thank many people, but I think those thank yous have been done over and over again. But I wanted to say thank you to our MC today, Marcus Pulowski. So Marcus sent me about 100 different emails and messages about this project. He followed up with me relentlessly over and over and over again. As the Parliamentary Secretary to Finance and Industry Canada, the Strategic Innovation Fund and the investment tax credits kind of sit between those two ministries. And so Marcus fully utilized every tool in the political toolbox to get this project across the finish line. Can we give Marcus Pulowski a round of applause? I also want to say thank you, and I hope, Trevor, you don't mind if I say congratulations to Greg DeRay, because Greg as well, I think, has become one of my best friends in the course of getting this project to this point. Greg, you were truly remarkable. It was great to become friends with you, but through this project, and I hope that that relationship lasts, and it's great to be here today. Congratulations to Frontier Lithium. I also want to say a big thank you to Vivienne Lepoint. Vivian had our caucus to Sudbury, and we toured Cambrian College. And Cambrian College, Frontier Lithium was actually present there and is doing some really great R&D work on processing lithium, and I got to learn about that. And so it's every time that this project came up, I thought of that visit to Cambrian College and the great R&D work that's behind a lot of this. So lastly, I just want to say this project is strategic. It's strategic for Canada in multiple ways. It's strategic to have lithium refining in Canada, given the domestic and global demand, which I think Minister Wilkinson covered is sure to increase by, I think, about 500% by 2050. We can be leaders in the clean tech industry around the world, and I think we can be a supplier of choice for lithium. It's also strategic because having end-to-end EV battery supply chains here in Canada equips us to better be able to leverage our competitive advantage. We're rated #1 by Bloomberg NEF, and I think Canada can continue to leverage its advantage of having the natural resources here at home. On those global allied good friends and trading partners like Japan and many others that we can continue to work with. Lastly, I'll just say, let's continue to be as strategic as possible, but let's not also forget, as Minister Champagne would say, to be as ambitious as we can. Canadians are depending on us now more than ever, and I think we have the opportunity to lead. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you, Ryan. And last but certainly not least, I'd like to introduce Kevin Holland. I'm the Member of Parliament for Thunder Bay Rainy River. The corresponding provincial MPP for most of my riding is Kevin Holland, who is also Minister of Energy and Natural Resources. And I know someone like me who's been a big advocate for this project. Kevin.
Well, like Vic, I also got a promotion here today, so thanks, Marcus. I appreciate that. So, it's a real privilege for me to be here today following up on all the great speakers that were before me, but in particular the Consul General and Trevor for the reasons why we are here today, so thank you for that. And it's an honor to be here alongside the incredible Minister Fedeli, who work so tirelessly for the province of Ontario, as well as our federal MPs, to share in this exciting announcement. As well, I have to give a shout out to His Worship Mayor Ken Boschkoff, the staff that's here from the City of Thunder Bay, City Manager, and of course, to echo what Patty said, the incredible work being done by Jamie Taylor and her team at the Thunder Bay CEDC. So thank you for being here. So Frontier Lithium, an Ontario-based company, is planning to invest hundreds of millions of dollars to establish a groundbreaking lithium refinery in our community. I've had the pleasure of working with Frontier Lithium since my election in 2022. And I think the first time we met was at a dinner in Sudbury, where we had the good fortune of sitting at a table together. So I remember that fondly, and they very quickly educated me on lithium, I got to say. So, and I look forward to continuing to work with you to ensure Northern Ontario is a leader in critical mineral development. The PAC Lithium Project aims to be the first fully integrated lithium development initiative in Canada, supporting Ontario's Driving Prosperity Plan, which seeks to transform the automotive industry and protect hundreds of thousands of jobs across Ontario. This proposal highlights Ontario's reliable and competitive business climate. By bringing this type of business to Thunder Bay, we are helping to bring Northwestern Ontario to the table as the province continues to grow as a key player in building the vehicles of the future. Our government has worked with all levels of government to ensure we are supporting Ontario companies such as Frontier and bringing more jobs to Ontario. Our northern communities are the cornerstone of the natural resources and mineral sections. This project supports our broader strategy to harness critical minerals including lithium, nickel, and graphite to meet the growing demands of the EV market. This announcement represents more than just a boost for our economy. It's an opportunity for businesses to thrive as we introduce more careers into our northern sector. This investment could not only boost the production and processing of lithium chemicals in Thunder Bay, but also create new, high-paying, high-skilled jobs, making a meaningful contribution to our local economy. This is truly a generational opportunity that extends far beyond Thunder Bay, positioning all of northwestern Ontario at the forefront of a rapidly expanding global industry. And I'm so excited to be part of it. Thank you.
Thank you, Kevin, and that's the end of the official order of speakers. Let me just close by saying we live in challenging times, which have become that much more challenging as of today. One of our biggest strengths as a country has always been our natural resources. And because of the green transition, because of the geopolitical forces that we're all facing, critical minerals have taken on a new exaggerated importance both for the economy and both for the national security and international security. So this is a big announcement. It's a big announcement for Thunder Bay. It's a big announcement for northwestern Ontario. It's a big announcement for Ontario. And I would suggest it's a big announcement for the world. So thank you, everybody, for showing up. Now I would like to open it up for questions from the media, and I welcome Charlotte Power, who will moderate the media availability. Charlotte? Wait, there's Charlotte. Oh.
All right, good afternoon, everybody. As I said, we'll now open it up to the media, so I can pass the mic around for questions. Before you pose your question, if you could just state the outlet that you're reporting from and your name, and if it's for any specific speaker, just let us know so they can stand up to the podium. All right, I see a question over there. I'm on my way. Excuse me, so sorry.
It's Peter Dvorak from City News. This is for Minister Fedeli.
Stand down.
Hold on here. What measures and actions can you take without recalling the provincial parliament to deal with Trump?
I think the Premier was pretty clear this morning that we will be removing alcohol from all LCBO stores, from American-made alcohol from LCBO stores, as well as discontinuing the purchase of alcohol. That affects 3,600 products, 35 states, but $1 billion a year hit will take place in the states because of that. So that was number one. Number two, the Premier spoke about us not doing any and canceling contracts between the province of Ontario and U.S. firms. This is, we spend about $30 billion a year on goods and services, and that immediately will go into effect as well. So there's a series of escalating. Should the tariffs escalate, then we also have other avenues that we can escalate.
And secondary, since we're here with the nickel, can you stop the shipment of nickel just like that? Like, how does that work? Do you store it or do you sell it to other?
So I won't steal any of the Premier's thunder on that, but you heard him this morning. So I want to be very clear. I want to be very clear about something when it comes to nickel. Donald Trump every day says we don't need anything from Canada. Well, let me tell you, 80% of all the nickel the U.S. buys for their entire aerospace sector comes from Ontario. 56% of all of the nickel that the entire United States buys for their defense sector comes from Ontario. So when you say every morning when you wake up, I don't need anything from Canada, well, you're damn right you do. You can't make an airplane, you can't build anything in defense without Ontario, Canada, providing nickel. So the Premier spoke this morning about some of the methods, the sideline methods that we have to be able to stop the transfer of nickel from Ontario to the States, and he'll have a lot more to say about that, but it is completely doable. But he doesn't want to do that. He wants some more nickel to the United States, but it can't be under the terms and conditions set by President Trump today. We need to be back in business to be able to do that.
Matt McLaren from the Globe and Mail. This is for you, Minister Wilkinson. So what are the Canadian government's options regarding non-tariff measures that you could take against the U.S. regarding energy and or critical minerals?
So, as you know, we have been working very actively with provincial and territorial leaders on a Team Canada approach, and the discussion in terms of response measures happens initially at that table. Obviously, we are looking for unanimity with respect to the steps that we take, or at least we strive for unanimity. And we achieved that with respect to the measures, the response measures that the Prime Minister outlined yesterday and today, some of which are implemented now and some of which will be implemented after a short consultation period. There are a range of other measures that we can take as we move forward, if in fact those are needed. I would say our first point of departure is to try to ensure that the Americans understand how much this is going to hurt them from an economic perspective, and not to fully escalate this thing if we can avoid it. And so, you know, I'm in Washington tomorrow night and Thursday to be having some fairly frank conversations with my counterpart. I would say, though, that everything is on the table as we move forward if, in fact, we cannot get the Americans to see a rational point of view. And I would say in that regard, certainly critical minerals in particular, I think are an important card that we need to consider. You've heard from the Ontario Premier with respect to nickel, but they are just as dependent on zinc. They are just as dependent on potash. They are just as dependent on germanium. They are just as dependent on uranium. And I can go through a long list. When President Trump says he doesn't need something from Canada, that's just not true. And so looking at putting on either our own export tariffs or looking at other measures that could include deciding we're going to sell some of those products elsewhere, those are fully on the table.
Mm-hmm. And would you do that specifically with critical minerals?
I would say that critical minerals, the option that the Americans have is to buy more from China, or it's to buy more of some of them, potash and uranium in particular, from Russia. It's hard to see how the measures that are being taken by the American president to a country that has historically been their closest friend and ally, it leads them down a path to purchasing more materials from their greatest adversaries. So yes, you know, critical minerals are definitely going to be a point of conversation, and we discussed that at the Energy and Mine Ministers meeting this morning.
Thank you, Minister.
Hi, Vicky Mochama, Ricochet Media. I was wondering if you could answer the question of Indigenous participation in this project. I don't see Indigenous representation across this group. What about Indigenous communities who say that the 33 critical minerals deemed essential in Ontario exist on their land and they're not getting the kind of engagement from the federal or provincial governments that they need?
Well, thank you very much for the question. And I think as part of the work that the federal government has been doing over the last 9.5 years, it is actually engaging Indigenous communities in a very important process, including the process of economic reconciliation. And that's why the work that we've done to set the table for success with things like Frontier Lithium, by providing support for Frontier Lithium to not only build up their capacity in terms of developing new assets, but also working closely in partnership with First Nations communities. The investments we're making in critical infrastructure, the investments we're making in capacity, and the investments that we're making through major loan guarantees so Indigenous people can actually participate in evolving economies, including critical minerals, are so important. This is not an either-or question. It was for a very long time. But in fact, you know, and if you've been here for any time, that there are many Indigenous partners here today at the mining conference, many Indigenous partners that are invested and engaged in mining activities, both as participants and partners, but increasingly as owners. And so this is, I think, a development that is actually incredibly advantageous for Canada.
If I could ask a follow-up about the critical mineral strategy in Ontario, or did you have a second answer?
Yeah, no, it's a great question, and just to add to the minister's comments, this is about trust. This is a project about reconciliation. You know, we're not. It's really important to have an inclusive development with regards to this project, this company. And as Minister Fedeli alluded earlier on, this is a project located in the Northwest where 2 years ago, there was no power into the region. There's still in the Northwest, that's the mine site, lack of infrastructure into the region. And from the early stages discussion, we put the initial discovery hole into the resource in the Northwest in 2013. And this is not about a flash in the pan. This is about building partnerships. This is about working closely with Indigenous communities in the North to make sure that there's investment to create that relationship of codependence. This is a really important time where government, industry, Indigenous communities coming together. Some initial steps have been a recent investment by both levels of government into a Barons River Bridge, an $80 million investment that's to start in a couple of months to span the Barons River Bridge and bring access into Treaty 5 region, to tie and link northern communities to where this proposed facility would sit in Mission Island. So this has been really thoughtful and thought out, and it's based on Canadians working together. And the sky's the limit. We're really excited with the loan guarantee and opportunity funds that's been announced in Ontario. And the sky's the limit. And we look forward to participation, beyond just business opportunities, but into real partnerships. And that's what the company and I know the country and the province stand for. So thank you.
Okay, thanks. Good afternoon. Lauren Battigello with CBC News. I have a question for Minister Wilkinson. If you don't mind answering in English and French as well, sir, that'd be much appreciated. So now that the tariffs are here, how seriously do you have to look at export taxes on oil and other energy to make sure that America really feels this at the pump and in the utility bills?
Well, first and foremost, Americans are going to feel it at the pump and in their utility bills simply because of the tariffs that the president himself has imposed on American consumers. You have already seen Irving Oil actually raise the price of gasoline and diesel fuel going into the northeastern states to account for the tariffs that are going to have to get paid. You have seen the price of domestically produced steel going up significantly in the United States because of the tariffs. So American consumers, unfortunately, are going to pay more for gasoline, they're going to pay more for home heating, they're going to pay more for electricity, they're going to pay more for automobiles, they're going to pay more for fertilizer, which means the food that they buy in the grocery store is going to cost them more. And so I would say this is why this is a lose-lose proposition. And there are far more constructive conversations that we could be having with the United States about how we actually create mutual benefit going forward. And that is a conversation that I will continue to have when I'm in Washington. But in terms of Canada's response, the initial response is aimed at actually looking at goods, American goods, that are sold in significant quantities in Canada, for which there are readily available alternatives for Canadians. Think Kentucky bourbon, think orange juice, that are going to create significant domestic pressures on the American president to rethink what he is doing. And you're already seeing that. Senator Cruz came out, Senator Grassley came out, a range of senators and community leaders, the mayors of many of the communities in the United States have come out. So the first point of departure is to create domestic pressure to get the administration to reflect on its decision. If, in fact, we are unsuccessful and this continues for a long time, we obviously will have to look at other measures to continue to ratchet up the pressure. As I've said before, everything is on the table. It would be foolish of us to take tools off the table before there's even a negotiation underway. And so in that context, critical minerals and energy are part of that. But they are only one part of it, and we have been very clear with all of the premiers that anything that we do needs to be done in a manner that is fair from a regional perspective and fair from a sectoral perspective.
Sorry, just in French, if you don't mind.
Right. C'est important de savoir que les mesures de tarifs que le président a fait, c'est quelque chose qui crée les coûts pour les consommateurs américains. Et c'est un grand dommage. C'est pas quelque chose que nous voulons avoir, une situation comme ça, mais c'est quelque chose que le président lui-même a créé. Et bien sûr, nous allons répondre avec nos mesures et nous voulons avoir une situation dans laquelle il y a les coûts pour les producteurs américains qui exportent les produits ici au Canada. Bien sûr, nous voulons trouver un chemin dans lequel nous pouvons avoir une situation et nous pouvons créer les bénéfices mutuels entre les deux pays, mais maintenant, on doit répondre. Le Canada doit répondre.
Question for Minister Fedeli. Can you just clarify, Jacob Lawrence from Bloomberg News, can you just clarify what Ontario plans to do around nickel exports to the U.S.? I was confused earlier on if Premier Ford is seeking export tariffs on nickel to the U.S. and if you can do that without the federal government's help.
I think the Premier was very clear that everything is on the table, including our critical minerals, and working in conjunction with the federal government.
But he mentioned yesterday wanting to stockpile nickel in Ontario. Is that something that he's started arranging, or is he just making these comments, or has something actually started to happen?
I think he's very serious about his comments. He's very serious about every single thing he has said. That is certainly one of the options, to be able to look elsewhere for sales.
Thank you.
Thank you.
All right, I just want to make sure before we wrap that everyone has. Okay, so we'll just have one last.
Sorry, Vicky Mochama. We need to get the federal government out of the way, especially talking about some of the impact assessment processes. Minister Fedeli, can you talk about, how it would work in an ideal arrangement if the federal government got out of the way?
I missed the last part of your question.
How would it work in an ideal arrangement if the Premier got his wish and the federal government got out of the way?
So we have a Ministry of Red Tape Reduction. I think that speaks very loudly to what our intentions are. It's duplicative red tape, pieces of red tape that we're trying our best to eliminate. So if we've got two different jurisdictions coming at doing exactly the same thing, we want to eliminate the duplicative process in that.
So look, we all agree at the provincial and federal level that we want to find ways to make regulatory and permitting processes work more efficiently. That needs to be within the frame of ensuring appropriate environmental protection and the engagement of Indigenous communities, and of course the respect for Section 35 rights. But we all acknowledge that projects presently are taking too long, and part of that is our own fault, that we actually do things sequentially instead of concurrently, that federal and provincial government are not appropriately aligned to ensure that we're not asking companies to do things twice. We had a meeting of Energy and Mines ministers this morning. We discussed exactly this subject. We will be issuing a statement later today on that, and there will be an active bilateral and multilateral process to look at how we can better coordinate the processes to ensure that we do the right things from the environmental perspective, from the consultation and engagement with Indigenous peoples, but we do this faster.
All right, that brings us to the end of our announcement today. Thank you very much, everyone, and have a good afternoon.
Thank you very much. That was great. Thank you. Thank you. Good? Yep. See you soon? Yep. Thank you, Marcus.